Bristol City have shocked the Championship so far this season, with a lot of people in their predictions writing off Bristol City completely as regards for any chances of even getting the playoffs for most of the Championship fans. Of course, after Liam Manning leaving, a lot of people were expecting a Bristol City drop-off this season. But so far, early signs have suggested that Bristol City could have an even better season than what they did last season. If you are a Bristol City fan, then do hit subscribe on this channel. We do daily Championship content, and we talk about Bristol City a lot, so if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, as I say, if you're a Bristol City fan, definitely do hit that subscribe button. And do drop a like as well if you do go on to enjoy the video, and let's jump straight into it. Now with Bristol City, I mean, they currently sit third in the Championship at the time of recording this video. They put in a poor performance against Oxford. There's no doubt they've been unbelievable so far this season, but they had one poor game in the last match against Oxford, which was definitely their worst performance of the season so far. But there's no kind of getting away from it. It's been an unbelievable start for Bristol City, and they've taken a lot of Championship fans, and myself included, by surprise completely. After a lot of people thought there will be a drop, and there very well could be. You never know. It's only 6 games into the season. Of course, it's very early days, but early signs suggest that this team are looking absolutely electric going forward for the most part. Of course, it's definitely worth talking about the manager situation. Of course, Liam Manning did a fantastic job last season at Bristol City. Of course, we know Bristol City, and we know, if you watch this and you're a Bristol City fan, you know exactly what it's normally like for Bristol in the Championship, and it's basically mid-table finish after mid-table finish, never really looking like getting relegated at any point. Sometimes having a thought about maybe we could sneak into the playoffs, but it never quite happens until last season, where they actually managed to get themselves into the playoffs. I mean, their form towards the back end of the season was not ideal. I mean, I suppose that is including their 2 games against Sheffield United, but just getting into the playoffs, I said this on my TikTok, Bristol City just getting into the playoffs last season was an unbelievable achievement. It's something that they've managed to break down after, as I say, many years of finishing in mid-table, and they've proved to themselves that they can get themselves in there. Of course, last season in the Championship, it was such a close division last season. I mean, 68 points is actually quite a low points tally to get into the playoffs. But as I say, there were so many teams in and around it. Bristol City ended up getting it, and for the most part were pretty decent last season, along with quite a few other clubs all in and around that area. And of course, in the playoffs, it didn't go as planned in the slides. It was honestly so poor, to lose 6-0. Of course, they got a red card in that first leg to Rob Dickie. We'll talk about him a little bit later on in the video. But of course, disappointed to not end up, well, to be as poor as they were in the playoff semi-final, and to lose the game 6-0 isn't ideal. But to get themselves in there is a huge achievement for them. And as I say, going into the new season, of course, Liam Manning going to join Norwich, and a lot of people then questioned, the ambition of Bristol City and the situation. Obviously, I'd say it's a pretty sideways step for Liam Manning to go from Bristol City to Norwich. Of course, Norwich are a big club and they've been in the Premier League in recent years, but in terms of players on the pitch and personnel, Bristol City did have a very strong squad, and Liam Manning bought and established Bristol City as a very strong Championship outfit overall last season, with some really impressive performances. I thought last season for Bristol City especially, I thought Jason Knight was absolutely fantastic in the middle of the park, and he was a player that has had Premier League interest in the past, and he ended up getting no move to any Premier League side, so it's amazing that Bristol City have managed to keep hold of him. And Struber's come in, and we saw from the first match of the season, this is where, as I say, we didn't really expect much from Bristol City going into the new season, and then you see this performance. It was on Sky Sports to watch this game, and you watch this game and you thought, you know what, Bristol City, they could be unbelievable this season. The way they looked from the first match was it was a proper statement performance to open the Championship season and get people thinking Bristol City might actually be up there again right from the start of the season, because that performance was so good against Sheffield United. I mean, you look at the stats, obviously Sheffield United could have had a couple of goals and they definitely had a few chances, but Bristol City in that match were absolutely ruthless on the counter. It's like every time they went forward, they looked unbelievable going forward. Of course, Scott Twine as well. And look at the lineup from that game, it was a sign in the first match of how things could actually pan out for Bristol City. And since that moment, on the whole, they've been very entertaining to watch, and they've been very creative going forward, and their forward players have been unbelievable to watch so far this season. Of course, you've got to start off with Scott Twine, we know, set-piece specialist, but an unbelievable footballer as well, and so talented. He just hasn't quite found, he's kind of lost his way over the last few seasons. He's not really been on top of his game in terms of his output, in terms of his goals and assists. I mean, he did all right for Bristol City last season, nothing to write home about, but this season he's been absolutely fantastic so far. 6 games in the Championship, 5 goal contributions. We know the quality of players. We saw this guy at MK Dons in League One, and he was absolutely unbelievable for MK Dons that season. As I say, he's been to Burnley, it hasn't really worked out. He's done okay, but as I say, he's not quite hit the heights that maybe we expected. When we saw him at MK Dons, we thought this guy was going to be unbelievable, and now he's really shown himself to be a top player at Championship. We know he's got that technical ability, and if he continue that form that he started the season off for Bristol City, then they have got themselves an absolute player on their hands, and genuinely so far one of the best players in the Championship so far this season. But then you've got all of your players firing at the start of the season. You've got Mehmeti, who at times last season, I mean, I watched him against QPR, and I thought he was the best player on the pitch when I watched him in that game against QPR. And he got a good goal output last season. 12 goals last season is a really, really impressive return. He was definitely kind of hit or miss in games. Some games he was unbelievable, some games he wasn't quite on it. But this season he started the season on absolute fire so far. 6 goal contributions. I mean, they're putting up ridiculous numbers, this front three is for Bristol City. And Mehmeti's a player, again, he's got so much technical ability. And, I mean, we saw the goal he scored against Oxford. He can just hit one from anywhere, it feels like, and he can go in the back of the net. He's got that kind of player that it's the same as Scott Twine, that can just pull some out of the bag, just pull some out of completely nothing. And I watched Mehmeti at Wycombe and thought he was really, really impressive as well. And, of course, signing for Bristol City, it's taken a little bit of time to kind of adapt in, but now he's kind of seems to got himself established in that side, and as well as that, be a real key player for Bristol City so far this season. As I say, the technical quality and ability this guy's got is for everybody to see. And then they've also, of course, brought in Emil Riis. Of course, they had kind of Naki Wells in that position. He's now obviously dropped down to League One. I thought at the time it was maybe a silly decision, but they brought in Emil Riis, and you have to say, he's hit the ground running. He's been very decent. He could have, I feel like, done a little bit more maybe. He could have got a few more maybe goal contributions. There's maybe a testament to how good Bristol City have been. As I say, he scored 3 goals himself, got 1 assist, and he's been starting every single match for Bristol, and he's been very impressive as well. As I say, there's games where he's kind of hit or miss. We knew that from his time at Preston, but for the most part, he's been really good, running in behind, keeping defenders busy, keeping defenders occupied, and of course then creating space and taking the kind of focus off players like Scott Twine, and as well as that Mehmeti, gives them more time and space on the ball, and they've been benefiting massively from a player like Emil Riis. As I say, he's a really busy striker, likes to run in behind, and always keeps defenders occupied, and they definitely know they're in a game when they're up against Emil Riis. I mean, he's had some fantastic performances so far this season. And I thought even against Sheffield United as well, he only got an assist in the match, but I thought he was really good in that match as well. So the whole front line for Bristol City so far have been absolutely cooking so far this season. I think it's fair to say, because, you look at the table and you look at how many goals Bristol have scored. 13 goals so far this season, which is the second highest scorers to Coventry, and Coventry scored 7 goals in 1 match. So going forward, they've been absolutely scintillating. But then you've also got that kind of quality in behind as well. Obviously, I spoke about Jason Knight, how good he was last season for Bristol City. He was one of the most underrated players in the whole of the Championship, and he's such a key player to the way that Bristol City play. He can do absolutely everything. He's very good going forward. He can drive the ball forward. He can pass the ball forward. He also, as well as that, is very strong in the tackle as well. He offers so much in that Bristol City side. There's numerous times where I've watched him on TV and thought, this guy could actually go to the Premier League at some point. Obviously, he's still 24 years old, so there's still definitely time for him, and who knows, maybe with Bristol City at some point. I think he's a fantastic player and genuinely one of the more underrated players in the Championship, because you talk about the best midfielders in the league, and probably nobody talks about Bristol City outside, or not many people talk about Jason Knight outside of Bristol City fans, and I absolutely rate this guy so highly. But then you've also got flying wing-backs as well in McCrory, who's been fantastic so far this season. We saw him towards the back end of the season where he was really, really impressive for Bristol City. He's kind of taken that form from the back end of the season into this new season with Bristol City, and a player that can really drive the ball forward, and as I say, he's got so much energy in that side. When you look at the defensive contribution, aerial duels, I mean, the guy's right up there in terms of players in around his position. He's been fantastic in all aspects of his game so far, and he's a player that's really impressed me so far this season. And then you go to defensively, where, I mean, I do have a couple of question marks on Bristol City defensively. I mean, Rob Dickie in certain games can get caught. Obviously, I'm a QPR fan. I've watched Rob Dickie a whole lot playing for Queen's Park Rangers, where, I mean, in a high line and running backwards towards them. I mean, we saw it in the game in the playoff semi-final, which is just a kind of prime example. And to me, watching him as a QPR fan, I watched that and thought, that is just prime Rob Dickie. I mean, he's a fantastic defender on his day, good in the air, good at bringing the ball out of the back, can dribble, can drive the ball out of the back line and kind of take a man out and give an extra space to somebody else when he drives the ball forward, create space for other players. And that's a real positive of Rob Dickie. But sometimes, when the ball goes over his head, he's at absolute 6s and 7s. And that is a slight problem with Rob Dickie. We saw it in the playoff semi-final, and we see it in occasions where he does get caught out. As I say, for the most part, he's a very good defender, but he definitely has that kind of lapse in concentration and maybe positional sense to then he doesn't have the pace to recover going back, which is a slight issue that I have with Rob Dickie. But I mean, he's a very, very good centre-back on the ball, because I've watched him for numerous years at QPR. Rob Atkinson, of course, he was out on loan at Portsmouth in the second half of the season. I mean, he was fantastic at Portsmouth in the second half of the season. And he's kind of taken that form back into Bristol City, which is absolutely because left-footed defender playing the left side of the defence, such an important way to the way that Bristol City and Struber wants to play. And he's been really impressive since coming back. Obviously, as I say, I think that Portsmouth loan has done him a world of good. And as I say, he's come back into that Bristol City side, and he's been absolutely fantastic so far. And also, as well as that, the goalkeeper signing in Vitek as well. He's coming on loan from Manchester United. And I mean, you can argue this guy, I mean, he's better than Manchester United's keepers. I mean, you look at Man United's keepers, where obviously Onana's now gone. You've got Bayindir in goal. I mean, like, obviously it's a different step, isn't it? It's a different kind of ball game when you're playing for Manchester, and a different kind of pressure playing for Manchester United and playing in the Premier League than what it maybe is obviously for a Bristol City in the Championship. But this guy's been really impressive so far. I did my Championship team of the season a few game weeks ago, and during the international break, and I put Vitek in the team of the season. I think he's been fantastic, made some really good saves. Good at claiming crosses there, say 97% there, so he's right in the top in terms of that, and is a decent sweeper keeper as well. So he's definitely a very good modern day goalkeeper, and for the way that Bristol City want to play, he's been a fantastic signing. And as I say, it's a really settled squad, and it's been a squad that's been really impressive so far this season. And it's not like they've been crazy busy or anything like that in the transfer market. They've kind of quietly got around and got about their business. Adam Randell coming in from Plymouth, of course, got relegated with them, was a pretty decent player, one of Plymouth's better performers in the Championship, I think it's fair to say, especially under Miran Muzic. Thought he definitely raised his game and definitely earned himself another Championship move. And he's been really impressive so far. 6 starts so far. He's started every game, got himself an assist. And, of course, for the defensive part of the game, obviously he's got a lot of defending to do at Plymouth over his years when he's been there in the Championship. And he's come into Bristol City and he's complemented Jason Knight in the middle of the park really well for the most part. Netta Budge come in as well from Middlesbrough. As I say, they've not been crazy busy in the transfer market. But then as well as that, they haven't lost a huge amount in terms of their starters. When you look at the key players from last season, they've got the vast majority of their key players from last season. And they've kind of continued or even improved on what they were doing last season in the Championship. Of course, they were playing a 3 at the back system, but obviously Struber's kind of got his ideas across as well, and his implementation on that tactic as well, which obviously Liam Manning's laid them foundations there from last season. And it's really, really positive so far for Bristol City. But the problem is they have got a couple of difficult games coming up now. Preston have been really impressive so far this season. And then, as well as that, they have got Ipswich and after that, and then they have got my team QPR. So a kind of difficult few games there for Preston. But as I say, for the most part, going forward, they've been absolutely fantastic, Bristol City have. I mean, Sheffield Wednesday is kind of a gimme. I mean, you have to go there and you have to win the game. Comfortable winning that game. Hull City 4-2. I mean, they're putting teams to the sword. 4 goals in a match is crazy. Max Bird as well, very good player I rate really highly. And I mean, that game, look at the XG, look how many chances they created in that game. It just kind of shows what Bristol City are all about. Maybe, as I say, defensively, not quite to the same level as their attack. But then also, as well, I want to pick out this game as well against Derby County, because this was another game that was on TV that I watched a full 90 minutes of. This was a game where Scott Twine gave Bristol City the lead, where in this match, I really feel like this was such a great opportunity for 3 points, because they were the better side, they were in control of the game for the most part, and they kind of just took their foot off the gas, which for Bristol City, and as I say, they've scored so many goals so far this season, it was a bit disappointing to see them take their foot off the gas, because Derby were 100% there for the taking in that match. And then, if you don't put the game to bed, especially at Pride Park when it gets towards the end of the game, they're going to be piling pressure on. And in the end, Colton Morris goes and gets an equaliser. Right, so I think it was with a cross as well, and the ball came into the box and Colton Morris put it into the back of the net. And as I say, that was a game where you feel like Bristol City really should have won. You look at the kind of momentum in this game here. A lot of it was for Bristol City for the most part. Derby had a few spells, but as I say, they kind of took their foot off the gas and they got completely punished for that in the end. And that was their 2 points dropped in that game. And you think, Bristol could even be higher. Bristol City could even be higher in the table. They could even be sat in second in the table so far. But overall, it's been an unbelievable start. They've been very, very impressive going forward. Struber, fair play to him. I think a lot of people had question marks over him when he first came in the appointment. I certainly did as well. And he's definitely proved people wrong so far with a really good style of play and a really good system in place with a very settled squad, which has been really impressive so far this season. So if you're a Bristol City fan, let me know your thoughts on the season so far. Do you think you could potentially get in the playoffs again and potentially have another playoff push? I really do think with the kind of attack that they've got, and if it can continue like that, I really do see them having a playoff push this season and being right up there. And you never know, as I say, I've spoken about this numerous times, a lot of teams in the Championship, the relegated Premier League teams, they haven't had it all their own way since coming back down to the Championship, and there could be an open spot there for automatic promotion. As I say, if it's not Bristol City, there's numerous clubs all in this kind of mix right now, from even Middlesbrough, from top of the league all the way down to so far down the table. They all fancy their chances and think, you never know, we can sneak in the playoffs, we can maybe sneak an automatic promotion place if these big boys in the division don't step up. And who knows, Bristol City could be one of those teams. So let me know if you're a Bristol City fan, what you think in the comment section down below. Drop a like if you did enjoy the video, it'd be very greatly appreciated. It only takes 1 second to hit like. And if you're a Bristol City fan as well, do hit subscribe on the channel. There's plenty of content talking about Bristol City, plenty of content as well talking about the Championship in general. So if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, it would be very greatly appreciated. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.